friends. Welcome back to Very Good Enough.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hover. My friends call me Jess.
And I'm Layne Dealing-Turland. I already said the Very Good Enough part. So.
Yeah, this is a podcast from Very Good Mothers Club. And today's style is going to be a little more cozy than we've been in recent episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been doing interviews. So how cozy can you be via Zoom?
Not as cozy.
No, not as cozy.
We've been close together, which has been very cute for me. I like to feel you like right next to me.
I like that
That's
as well.
Very comforting.
It is comforting. Sometimes we're nervous going into it. I'm sweaty.
Yeah.
But feeling you is less scary.
Yeah, it feels very like we're very in it together.
Yeah.
And those have been fun. It's been so fun.
They have been fun.
But it has been funny to be having all these conversations about these big, interesting topics and sharing them with our audience. But you and I don't really talk about them.
Right.
You know, like before, the whole setup has just been like this very direct, you and me and them.
Yes.
But now that there's this other person, it's just like the dynamic. It's just funny to have like, we've been a party to the same big, cool conversations.
Yes.
And yet we haven't like
processed
delved into those conversations together, which is just funny. So it's exciting to be here today with just you and me again.
It is. And we're going to talk about something we really care about. And you have us facing each other a little bit more. She started off by saying she really respects the feedback that you want to see us facing you. But there is something very natural to having a conversation where you like look at each other and talk to each other. So today's style is going to be more like that.
A little more cozy.
Yep.
A little more podcast.
Little more podcast.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
Oh gosh, it's so nice to look at you.
Okay.
Thank you. So we had a conversation super recently that got cut for time, frankly, about the name of our podcast. You were saying that you had been getting some feedback about the name, positive feedback, that people like it.
Positive feedback,
which is fun. People tell me that too, that they like it, that it feels comfy, that it feels like
even without listening to the episode or any episode, sorry, I've gotten feedback like, oh my gosh, I love that name of a podcast. Like that sounds so good, so right.
Yeah.
You should listen.
They should listen.
Yeah.
I like it too. And we picked it at the beginning because it's kind of a play on Very Good Mothers Club. But then it's also mixed with kind of a play on this idea of the good enough mother, which is like a psychology principle from the 50s. And so I thought today we could sort of tease out both of those ideas a little bit more, have you talk a little more about where that came from on the Very Good Mothers Club side, and then I'll talk a little bit more about like this concept of what the Very Good Mother is.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jessica, why did you pick this name for your business?
It's very long, guys. It takes way too long to type. And had I known, I would have bought VGMC.com. But alas, someone else bought it after we started Very Good Mothers Club.
Oh, no.
I actually think I know who did. And if I want to buy it, then it's going to cost me way more money than I have. And so if you want to just type out Very Good Mothers Club and know that I'm new at this, that's how that goes. Very Good Mothers Club. Okay, it sort of actually started as a joke, a series of jokes. So I have Eloise. She was an only child for 4 years till her sibling arrived, and then immediately after another one arrived. And so I had a lot of time to make mistakes and love her deeply as I was making mistakes. Some mistakes that we talk about have been like pushing a stroller with a hot coffee. You hit a curb, hot coffee spills on baby's head. She cries.
Such a classic.
Yeah, so classic. She did not get burned. She is okay. She immediately recovered, but like that was too bad. Oops. That was, And another one was not buckling her car seat into the car. So I turned and the whole car seat flipped over. She didn't even cry. In fact, she said more. Like she loved it. And no, I should say the first time that happened, she wasn't old enough to talk. The second time it happened, which means I did it twice to the same child, she was old enough to ask for more. Yeah, so as I was telling her these stories, like she's old enough. I mean, now she's 8, but when we started Very Good Mothers Club, she was like 5. I think she was 5. She was old enough to laugh with me about things her very good mother did. And I would like have an accent like, your very good mother did this thing. And she would laugh so hard and like, tell me another one. And so it just kind of became this idea, like, what if it was this cute sort of club of very good moms who really try. I'm not like a negligent mother. These mistakes weren't happening while I was, being careless about my child. I actually was quite careful and yet made really dumb mistakes that were funny. And actually I was just telling Layne that this week or last week I got Eloise to school late again. And I was wearing a Very Good Mothers Club sweatshirt and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the day to be wearing this like big font Very Good Mothers Club as I walk her into their office and they're like, oh, Eloise is here again. Great. And even Eloise was laughing at that. But it is just like the right reminder to you that I name it that sort of like tongue in cheek, like you are a very good mom. You try hard and almost like I want to speak it over you. Like I want you to be able to identify with that, because I also get that sometimes where it'll be like, well, I can't join Very Good Mothers Club. Like my baby rolled off the bed. That was literally a mom said that to me. My baby rolled off the bed and she was like teary eyed. She's like, I don't think I can be a part of your community. Gosh, and I'm like, so precious. Join, like find out how many of our babies have rolled off the bed. Mine
pretty
has
much all of them.
Yes.
Like almost all of them.
Happens all the time to the most caring, careful parent. Your baby suddenly gets the strength of a ninja and catapults and is pretty fine most of the time. Watch now, I'm going to be getting comments back. Well, I once heard of a baby who wasn't fine.
Okay, everybody's heard of a baby who wasn't fine just to start.
Right. Yeah, we
totally
know.
Not a thing
That's
that we
why
want
we
to
cry
happen.
when this happens.
Absolutely. That's why it's scary. It's why it makes you feel like you're not a very good mom because you really don't want that to happen.
Exactly.
And yet I would be willing to bet all of the not very much money in my bank account that you rolled off your bed and that I rolled off my bed when we were babies. Because that's what babies do. They do suddenly wake up with the strength of 1,000 men.
Yes.
And they do
roll off the bed. Or they launch off the bed. Yeah. Yeah. And that happened to one of my kids and my husband was on the bed, eyes open, right there. And it just happened all of a sudden. And I was filled with rage at him. And then I was like, wait a second. And then I was humbled when that happened to a baby in my own presence. And then I was like, I'm really sorry about the time that I got upset at you for that thing that you didn't see coming at all. It's something that I feel like if you are the type of parent who cares about whether or not you're a good parent, you're probably a good parent. If I guess I'm going to generalize majorly, but I'm guessing the people who would be identified as not good parents probably aren't giving much thought to being good parents. That's a very generalized statement. But if you're listening to a podcast or reading a book or seeking out resources to help in parenting, I would say that's good parenting, like learning how you can be good at this role. Very good Mothers Club.
To the club.
Totally.
Point, right?
Yeah. And then I also have like this image of my grandparents, my grandma and grandpa were in a bowling league and they had these like cute nicknames and these cute shirts. And I just thought like, wouldn't it be so cute if Very Good Mothers Club could sort of like be that sort of like even the font that we use, the like cursive was like the bowling league cursive that was in my memory from that. And so, I just wanted it to be like this kind of timeless, like Very Good Mothers Club that includes like grandmas and the new moms and all of us in between. And it is something that we speak over ourselves that we're good at. And also that we understand that to be very good is just to be a parent who loves your kid and tries. And being a very good mom is going to be like, some days you're very good is like you made a lunch that looked like a hippopotamus and it was like so amazing and you took a photo and incredible. And then sometimes it's just like you fed your kids like they're pigeons and you're like, please just eat this thing. And
also
they're fed. Well done. So that's that.
I love that. I like the idea that in order to be part of Very Good Mothers Club, like the only threshold would be that you have to be ready to accept that moniker for yourself. And when I think about it, like sensorily, it's not the word, but like when you get in a super hot shower and it sort of stings you for a second, but it's exactly what you want, like a hot shower on a super cold day and it's warming you up and you're like, ooh, is this what I want? Oh my gosh, yes it is. Yes it is. Yes it is. Yes it is.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you have to sort of step into this like, oh, yes, I am a part of the Very Good Mothers Club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even when I wear it sometimes, especially the one, I have this gray one with like the big blue font that says Very Good Mothers Club.
I love that.
It is cute. I love it. Well done, Becca, who made that.
I want one of those, but I'm not a mom, so I don't.
You can have one.
Like...
Becca wears it. Come on.
Does she?
Of course.
Okay, I'm going to get one then.
Layne.
Is this the exact same thing?
my gosh, she works here. You work here. You could just say, I work here.
But
and your team, you're on the team,
know.
you support.
That's true.
You support them. And like people wear stuff all the time. People wear college shirts they didn't attend,
so
city shirts they never been to.
Okay, when I see someone wearing a Juilliard sweatshirt 100% of the time, I'm like,
you didn't go there.
No, you didn't go there. People who did go there are like people who went to Harvard who say, I went to school in, I don't even know where it is. I went to school in Massachusetts. I went to school in Rhode Island. Where's Harvard? But whatever it is.
I guess this is when we break it to you that we didn't go to Harvard.
I'm sorry to tell you, but in fact,
this is the first time they're finding out we didn't go to Harvard.
Didn't go to Harvard.
Shoot.
I didn't finish college.
Yeah.
Anyways, comedy people on podcasts who were like on the Harvard Lampoon are always like, I went to school in wherever, and people are like, oh, so Harvard.
Yeah.
I feel like Juilliard people are the same, but you see people wearing Juilliard sweatshirts.
Exactly.
False.
Exactly.
Anyways, so that's it. I don't want to be this Juilliard poser.
No, you got to be wearing Very Good Mothers Club sweatshirts.
Okay.
You're just on the team. And they're like, do you have kids? And you're like, no, but I'm for you if you have them.
That's so true. I am for you.
Yeah. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't believe Layne isn't wearing a shirt.
Anyways, the sweatshirt is so cute, and you wear it out in public, and it does keep reminding you to be like, a thing happened today, but I am still part of the club.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool.
It's cool.
You're cool. You're so cool. I love what you do. I love
when you
work.
Wear your sweatshirt. I'm going to bring one next time we record.
That's so nice.
Okay.
So that's the Very Good Mothers Club side, which is so fun.
It's so
cheeky, sweet, inclusive, almost a little confronting in a lovely way of like, let's confront the parts of you that are trying to be shadowy and hide yourself and speak down to you. Like, no, we're going to shine like really bright light on it, which I do feel like is the kind of person that you are. And it makes sense that would be reflected in your business.
Can I say something about that too?
Of course.
Sean pointed out last night, Sean's like really into you guys as parents and like supporting what you're doing right now. But he was like, we kind of live in this culture where moms are supposed to act like they're not moms, And he's like, it's kind of interesting because you guys, this and just Very Good Mothers Club as a whatever it is like trying to provide a space where we're not saying that you're only moms. Right. Obviously, you're many more things, but basically like you can proudly be one and be everything else that you are. Yeah. And he was like, I think that's really healthy because so many moms are put in this thing of like, okay, have a baby, but immediately return to work and immediately return to fitness and immediately return to like, I don't know, something. I think where this stemmed from was we heard a guy comment on like a girl's appearance and like, well, now that she's a mom, like, will she find anyone if she's ever single again? Because and Sean was like,
so you guys did a murder, and then you had this
so we murdered him, buried him. I hope you guys can find him. Yeah, I know exactly. But anyway, so that's the other thing is like to have a bold name that is a bit confronting the way you're saying. Maybe is healthy in a culture that's like, I don't know. It sort of feels like you go either way. You either are only mom. You're like, oh my gosh, look at that person. She has no identity outside of motherhood. Right. Which, how are we even to know that? Maybe that's just only her social media persona or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. Or the other side of like, she's a mom, but she really can't act like it because it would really jeopardize her work relationships or her social relationships or something. I don't know. So, but the Very Good Enough podcast, did you think of that? Or was that out? Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. I played with a lot of things. We actually went through like a lot of phases of like funny things. There was a funny one from the beginning. I'm trying to remember. I can see the graphic that I made where it was like a long title and I had it sort of like falling into this coffee cup for you.
Oh, that's cute.
It was like, it was a thing of like something funny that you said and other not true things about life with kids.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
What was that? It was like moms can't, or it's kids ruin lives.
Kids ruin lives and other things that aren't true about parenting or something like that.
So for a minute, it was going to be the Kids Ruin Lives podcast. But
which is super encouraging.
It felt funny, but maybe like a little sharper than we want to be. I also felt pretty self-conscious about being not a mom and having a podcast called Kids Ruin Lives. That just felt like a little much.
Funny.
Like,
yeah, that's a good point. You're smart.
It's a lot. It's funny, but I also it's very possible to hurt people's feelings.
Totally.
Happens a lot.
The way that name happened, which we didn't use, by the way, though, is because that's literally what I thought. And it came from growing up and having one of my parents say repeatedly, like, I was fine until I had kids, or I was good until I had kids. I was healthy until I had kids. I was a healthy weight. I was healthy mindset. So there was this idea that I really strongly held that having kids would ruin my life.
Yeah.
And it was something that was like a point of tension in my marriage. Sean was really excited to be a parent. And I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, this is what ruins lives.
Yeah.
And then arriving into parenthood, even in the midst of struggling, which many of you know I struggled hard after having Eloise, she didn't ruin my life. She like way made my life so like better in ways I couldn't even understand. And it's actually taken years to even make sense of it, because some of it is just transitioning into the new version of what you are. But yeah, that it's like, it's a joke, but it's also a belief system that I really had, which was not very helpful and created a lot of fear when it came to having kids.
Yeah, I think now that we're reflecting on it, I think this was part of that now legendary long conversation that we had on your bed the first time that we met for hours. And we talked about that very thing because I also extrapolated that idea from looking at and listening to the women around when I was a little child. And it took a long time, and honestly, like a lot of working with parents and families and kids until I could see enough kinds of mothers and parents and lives and structures to sort of like work that all the way out. And probably there is a little kernel in the back that is still like, but my life though, right? But like, but if I do it, I will, like there's probably a little nugget of that still slowly in there, because maybe you actually have to just go ahead and have the child in order to like really smash that belief all the way down.
Well, and I think it happened for every kid I had, where it was like, well, I can handle one, but two.
This one will ruin my life.
Two, but then three. Yeah, it's the same. You're like kind of waiting for it to happen. Like, when does it happen?
Yeah.
In my experience, it doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
No, for a lot of people, no. I think there have to be other factors and other kinds of beliefs involved in order for that experience to happen. Because of course we got that from somewhere. Some people do feel that way, or that is their experience. But I think it's more that a lot of things in life didn't go the way that one hoped, or a bunch of stuff happened in your life, including this like monumental change of now having these children. And so that's probably the one that gets the most visibility.
I think if you understand that having kids will absolutely transform your life, it is totally transformational, then it doesn't need to ruin your life. But if you go into it thinking you'll be the same, you will have an experience that it feels like motherhood may have ruined what I was before.
Oh, that life.
Yes. Because it's like, well, though having one child, you can still do many of the things that you did before. So there maybe is less, and like resources are such a thing. Because like if you have a lot of resources, I have people in my life who I have learned now have like night nurses. And
we should interview a night nurse on the podcast. We should. I am so fascinated by that topic.
Yeah. My friend in Colorado just didn't even know that they existed. But so you might not know that exists.
I just learned like last year. Because now we're in LA and people have them.
Yeah, they have them. I never have had one, but what a gift. So they are people who take care of your baby at night while you sleep and like feed them and get up with your newborn. And so then you get sleep. Yeah. And if you have resources, then having kids maybe wouldn't actually shift your life around that much, because you would have, but you'd still be, it's still like having your heart outside of your body, like where if something happens to them, you feel like you can't breathe. Totally. Anyway, we're kind of going on that, but you get it. I think having kids ruins something, but I'm only using that word because like you have to ruin something to grow something. Like with a plant, you like cut off the dead one so that the new one can grow. Having a baby is cutting something. Right. But then growth happens, and the growth is way prettier than the thing prior. Yeah. And then obviously I speak with tenderness, because if you really greatly desire kids and are not getting pregnant, you might feel like that's ruining your life.
Yeah.
And that's really awful too.
There's so many things.
Yeah.
Well, so anyways, if this was the name of our podcast, we also would probably be doing a whole entire lot of episodes.
We're like changing it to this. We're talking about what our episode isn't called.
What we meant
Yeah.
to be talking about Very Good Enough.
Yeah, talk about that.
Which I did come up with, but I think it really like, honestly, things got narrowed down in the design phase of like me just trying to make a reasonable graphic to like kick a podcast off. It was such a fun thing. I'm getting far enough away from the beginning of this because we really are coming up on a year to be like reflecting back on the beginning. But this idea of the very good mother is something that has, I read about it in school many, many years ago, for I did go to some school, though I did not complete a degree. I got plenty of school in order to do my job very well. And then I just continued reading and studying while doing the thing of early childhood education.
You are a highly educated person.
Thank
I
you.
just want to speak that out because if anyone's like, oh, she doesn't have a degree,
I know.
who is she to talk about that? You can read all of the same books that a college tells you to read. I have done it before. I have gone on and been like, what books are all these people reading who are getting psychology degrees?
Yeah.
And then I've read the books.
I have downloaded syllabi and worked my way through college syllabi.
Exactly.
And I don't think
You're very educated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyways, have like gently sort of blown past that. The gentleman who coined the term "very good mother" or "good enough mother," his name is Donald Winnicott.
Okay.
He's a psychoanalyst in the 50s, and I you get a little bit of all of the different kinds of theories of growth and development as you study, and get like qualified to do that job. But so it's like always been there in the like this little kernel of the back. So it really was kind of just a play on words for me of like, oh, you have this very good mother's club, but there's also this concept of this good enough mom.
Yeah.
And only now am I really like, maybe go like flesh out that foundation and understand more that thing that you named your whole podcast offering about. So I'm reading one of his books right now. And it is dense. It's dense.
Okay.
A dense material because psychoanalysts write for other psychoanalysts.
Yes.
So I'm working my way through it, but it's
You're not a psychoanalyst, is what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
But
hold on. You didn't go to Harvard and you're not a psychoanalyst? And you're not even a mom?
Sorry, Jessica. I'm so sorry that I so deeply misrepresented myself to you and to all of you folks out there listening. I'm just a lady who is like, if I may, really fucking good at teaching preschool.
Absolutely.
I'm like really good at that.
Yeah.
And I got into this job accidentally and was like, it aligned with something inside of me in such a way that I was like, whoa, I need to know everything about 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I know most things about 2-year-olds and then a lot of things that branch out and around and create a big, nice globe and dome of knowledge and understanding with like 2-year-olds at the center.
Yeah. And you have a real heart to help their parents understand them and feel good inside of parenting them.
Yeah.
Which sets you up really well to do this.
Parents need to be doing all that I'm describing in the spending all this time with the 2-year-old and creating this dome and globe of knowledge and understanding about this one thing. Yeah. That's actually something that I can do in part because I'm not a parent.
Exactly.
Like I have the space and the perspective. I have gotten to see so many different kinds of parents and hundreds of 2-year-olds and therefore that many hundreds more of individual adults who come in pairs with these 2-year-olds, right? Like there's so much there that it's like my pleasure and my joy to know about and to just be able to be like, let me amplify this one thing for you guys while you go be the mama. I totally can't tell you how to like be this little child's mama, but I can tell you what this child is and what they're like. And I can tell you what this gentleman, Donald Winnicott, thought about how they develop and how you be there with them in this development and what they need to do in order to be with you and then get separate from you so that they can be themselves. Like,
it's really good.
This is what we can offer here.
Yeah. So Donald Winnicott.
Okay, first, before we jump straight into this, I want to just talk about the word enough for a second, because colloquially, when we talk about things being good enough, we often are like, it's like good enough. You know, it's like, it's good enough, so we'll just, I don't know, just get it like good enough. I guess
like as if it's not actually great.
Yes, as if it's like subpar.
It'll get by.
And not very good.
Yeah.
Good enough is like not very good.
Yeah.
When in fact, if we think about it, the word, I pulled I very rarely go to the dictionary, but I want to like really put a fine point on like what it means enough, because when we separate it from the word good and we talk about being enough, we actually have a very different idea about what that means. We're like really striving to show one another like, no, you're enough.
Yeah.
Like we speak about that really differently.
You have a tattoo.
You are
enough.
Yes.
It's on my
ankle.
I love that. And the guy who gave it to me, this is just a detail. He was speaking in Spanish. He thought I didn't understand. And his friend was like, the line is crooked. And he said, I'm not a perfectionist in Spanish. And I was like, you kind of want your tattoo artist to be a perfectionist. Yeah. But at that point, the line was already crooked. So my tattoo's just good enough.
Yeah. It's enough. It gets the point across, right? Every time we see it, we read the words and we go, yeah, you're enough.
Anyway.
Yeah. But so like, this is what enough means, right?
Yes.
In a quantity or degree that answers a purpose or satisfies a need and desire sufficiently or fully. So if we're good enough, it means that we are good in a quantity that answers the purpose. We're good in a degree that satisfies the need, that satisfies the desire. To be good enough is to be sufficiently good or fully good. Right? If you fill something up with enough water, it's the right amount of water.
Yeah, it's full.
It's what you need. It's the satisfying amount of water. It's full.
Yeah.
So to be good enough is to be good sufficiently. I am sufficiently good at this. And that is different from perfect. And I want to talk about perfect in a minute, but like good enough is like, there's enough good here. That's like, I want to use all these superfluous words, but that would destroy the point, right? I want to be like, that's perfect. That's amazing. It's good.
It's good
enough. It's
satisfying.
Enough good. Yeah. So I want to talk about like the enoughness. Hold that in your mind when we talk about Donald Winnicott talking about a good enough mother, because there's a way to say, she's a good enough mother, or to say like, she's a good enough mother, right? And those are, we hold those really differently. And so I just want to like really put this other one in the middle and say like, we're talking about good enough. Whoa, she's like good enough.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Good. Okay. I worked myself up there for a second. So, in this like psychology term, so Donald Winnicott is a gentleman who was a pediatrician and a psychoanalyst, which is like, to be a psychoanalyst, you got to go to more school than to just be like a psychologist or like a psychotherapist. It's like kind of the most school that you can be to do the psychology, right? Is like psychoanalytics. And so his study as like a practicing pediatrician and then a student of psychology, or a studier of psychology, I guess you should say, is all of this time with mothers and babies forever. So he like really focused in on like this relationship between mother and baby. And when you talk about things in psychology spaces, they also kind of take on this archetypal meaning. So we're going to talk about mother, but and it does mostly literally mean mother, but we also are talking about caregiver, right? We're talking about like my primary person. And that's going to be some dad. And if a baby spends a lot of time in a child care center, like those secondary people are obviously going to have less of an impact than this initial person, but also you, right? And also me, right? So like when I'm studying these things, I'm just the adult, like the adult in the classroom. So I know forever, like I'm the secondary caregiver. So it's going to be less of this, but the archetype of it is we're talking about the impact, we're taking things to this like basic, almost kind of symbolic sense to be like, these are how the two things relate to each other. And if you're the mother, and that's the baby, it's you all the way. And if you're the dad and it's the baby, it's like mostly you. And then if you're the secondary caregiver, it's like a lot less also you and the baby. But like these are how these things relate to each other, right?
Got it.
So what an infant wants is for its every single discomfort to be alleviated right this second, right? They're like just little experiencers. Like they're not even like, I was going to say experience machines, but they're not even mechanical. Like they're just this feeling. All they are is like, I am sometimes alert and conscious and here, and then I fade away from that, which is to fall asleep. Yeah. And then I come back into it and I'm just a little tiny experiencer of things. So when something doesn't feel good, they just want it to not be that anymore. All they are is like a feeling. So they want to feel good and they don't want to feel bad. And they have no differentiated sense of I exist and she exists, right? If Jessica is the mother and there's this little baby, the baby's just like, the meanest. And so there's this weird frustration for them of like, if I, me, am feeling discomfort, why isn't she, me, instantly making that go?
Yeah.
And that's kind of aggravating, right? That's why we get all this yelling, because it's just the meanness is not fixing this thing of discomfort.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a little oyster with the sand in there that's about to make the pearl. If the pearl was, oh, I have a self, I'm me.
Got
this
it.
little nugget of discomfort of like, I'm physically uncomfortable, but I don't even know that I have this body, right? Like the frustration and the rub between like my expectations, which are I should be in perfect comfort all the time, and I'm not in perfect comfort all the time, and she won't make me perfectly comfortable all the time. Like that agitation. And if you're not watching, I'm like, this sound is me like rubbing this friction together. That's a big part of what leads to this realization that like, oh, I exist in a body. As a matter of fact, me, I'm over here in this body. She's over there in that body. We're not the same. I'm me. Oh, I'm going to have to comfort me. I'm going to have to figure out how to tolerate a reasonable amount of frustration. It's kind of frustrating to exist in a body. She doesn't perfectly take away all that frustration all the time. So I'm going to have to start to grow into agency and power and personness and selfness, right? Like that, the aggravating nature in psychoanalysis, they call it aggression, which is like a little bit more of an intense word for us to be using, but that feeling of like, that you see babies have, right?
Yeah.
It's super
They have
necessary.
it even while their parent is trying to comfort them.
Totally.
Like, they have freak out nights or something, gassy bellies, colic, all kinds of things.
Until
and the mom
sensation
is like,
goes.
trying so hard. Yeah.
So her failing to do it is a really important part of the process.
So that's interesting. So then that would mean it's good. Like what you're doing when you feel frazzled in motherhood, like I can't fix this baby's discomfort and I'm trying everything.
Yeah.
It's actually good.
Yeah.
But then I'm just asking you this, but then like, I guess the assumption, like you wouldn't obviously then be like, well, I can't fix it anyway. So just let them cry because the crying is good. It's not just that the crying is good. It's like the mom is trying.
Yes.
It's still not working. So somehow we're together, but we're separate.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. So part of a few episodes back, we talked to Dr. Sam Rader, right? And she touched on this a little bit. A lot of what she explained to us comes from this same kind of field of thought. It's called object relations theory.
Okay.
That's who Donald Winnicott is, one of the founders of that. The cycle that needs to be happening. I'm going to use the word, this is just like a trigger warning. I'm going to use the word fail here.
Yeah.
And I'm using it in a very specific context, so listen closely. The important thing is this cycle of the child cries out because they don't like the thing, they don't like the feeling that's happening, the sensation, there's discomfort. The mother attempts to solve it, and she only does get that right about a third of the time, approximately a third of the time. Those other times, the baby feels the adult fail, quote unquote, to perfectly meet their expectations. And that gap between the baby's expectations and the mother's ability to meet it like perfect, head on, hit the bullseye.
Yeah.
In that gap, essentially, that's where the separate sense of self forms. That's
Interesting.
really important. And so you've kind of jumped us ahead to like the surprise ending, which is that the good enough mother, about 3 out of 10, about a third of the time, hits the nail on the head, is better for development than the perfect mother. If you were to perfectly meet a child's expectations, a baby, right? We're talking about infants. Super unreasonable. Couldn't be reasonable. Don't know how to reason. Totally under-resourced to figure things out in the world. They just got here. So their expectations are absurd, right? They want you to feel their sensation and then delete it. That's not real.
Right.
If you were to achieve that for them, every time they have a sensation they don't like, there you are, boom, gone, sensation, gone. They don't have a reason or even the ability to differentiate from you. They keep kind of believing that you are kind of the same, and they don't develop the thing inside that says, oh, I guess I need to learn how to self-soothe. I need to internalize this parent for myself and therefore become my own.
That's right.
Not my own parent in the sense that I delete my parent, but like really ultimately, just like to quickly zoom out and do another little spoiler here, like children take from you and their super early experiences. I took from my parents and super early experiences kind of a mental, psychological model of how the world works and how things relate. Yeah. And I took these two adults whose job it was to take care of me and in that show me how it works. And I put them into a mental model inside myself. And those two people are the model from which I parent myself, right? I'm an adult who experiences a thing and responds to myself pretty much based on the ways that these adults responded to me. That's why we talk about reparenting. Wow. It's also why even if you and I work out a really functional relationship with our literal physical mom, these women who exist, we still have to work out our relationship with this internalized parent that we have too. So even if I get things all fixed and nice and flowing really well with my literal physical mom, woman person, I still got to go inside and do that reparenting in order to not correct the child, but correct the parent that I have inside. Right?
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's also why siblings experience things, their experience of their childhood. Jess just met my brothers, so we were just talking about this. I met them. And like they have such a radically different view and experience of my mom. Like my littlest brother is almost 5 years younger than me. And so I was already past the 3-year-old point. I already did all this 0 to 3. And I was almost all the way to 5 where your brain like really feels like it has this mental model before he was even alive. He doesn't even know the mother who I have internalized. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I was kind of done already by the time she even started with him.
Interesting.
So we get these inside models of stuff. So if you are, if you're this mother who's like every time there's a negative sensation and you're able to just like bang right on it, gone. Then you got this little kid who has this expectation inside of the world and therefore kind of themselves too, right? If they're now starting to take on some of that authority and some of that responsibility for caring for themselves, that when there's a sensation, it should be able, either by the environment or by themselves, to be completely taken away. Oh, I feel frustration. That should be gone. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Very confusing. And also it does funky things to your literal relationship as an adult.
And it sets
and
them
the
up.
child.
It sets them up badly. As there's a person in my life who is very, very successful and wealthy. And he in his 20s was married and they struggled a lot and he had access to a lot of support. Anyway, at some point they did a scan of his brain. And his brain looked like the brain of like an adolescent, basically. Like basically what they could figure out was like where did development not continue.
Yeah.
And what they concluded was around that time is when a lot of wealth came into their life.
Wow.
And so essentially every discomfort was removed because they could afford to remove it in all kinds of ways. And then as this person got older and then wanted to enter into like a marriage, which is requires two adults to really function well if you're going to have a healthy marriage.
It has a lot of friction. You are so close to someone that you bump up against them really constantly.
And now you have someone who's like, really, like you're going to cope like that? Like that doesn't seem good for you. Or, you know, you find you have like a mirror to be like, oh. And it basically took going back and being like, okay, well then how do you learn now what you would have learned at that age about coping, about persevering, about working through something that's really uncomfortable and not just immediately going to something that will numb you. The amazing thing is this person has done that and is doing really well. But it was super interesting for me to understand that that's a very real thing. Like we kind of talk about it. And for me, I can make it, it's almost like a theory. Like, well, theoretically, you'll just stop developing.
Arrested development is a show. But it's not a show. It's a very real term where development becomes arrested, which is to stop something.
That's right. Yeah. So it's interesting as you're talking. I'm like, yeah, this is so real because here a parent, especially a parent with resources to meet the child's every single need would feel so inclined by love to do that.
Yeah.
But then you could actually set the kid up to not be able to have functional, is that the right word?
Totally.
Yeah. Like adult relationships because they don't know how to parent themselves.
But also their relationship with themselves is really
Yes.
impaired because it's this idea that I should be able to make it so that I never feel bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of life is low grade, not that comfortable.
Right.
Right? Oh, my shoes are tight. Bras are not that comfy.
Right.
I have to wear them because otherwise I'm uncomfortable in this other way. Right? Like just like very simple.
Right.
Like,
Things
it's
are uncomfortable.
not that cozy to be in a body.
Yeah.
And it's not that cozy
Yeah.
to be next to other people. It's really good. It's like really worth it. And it's really, it benefits you so much. And it's wonderful to be here. I'm so happy that I have a body, that we don't just float around. I'm so happy that I have other people and stuff like that. But the ability to be that way, even what I'm describing is it's quite efficient, right? Like my brain has accepted that there's a level of low grade discomfort and that there are things that are more important to me than that, right? I'm more focused on you than I am on, oh, it's a little humid in LA today. It's kind of sticky. So my brain is like, we don't really care about that part so much. It just pushes it down and I focus and I be with you.
Sure.
So this mother who perfectly meets this child's expectations, and again, not meets reasonable expectations, but meets the expectations of tiny children. What is happening there is she's taking away the benefits of what they call tolerable frustration or optimal frustration. It's really important when you're little to experience an optimal amount of frustration. It tells you your experience is not the central thing in this universe. It's really important. It like pulls your ego down to the correct size of like, oh, I am here. I do matter. There is a story around the meanness and it's good. Not, oh, I am the meanness. The story is the meanness, right? Like you have to come up against the full lines of other people, bump up against them and against them and against them and be like, gosh, I guess there's an edge to me and an edge to them. It's really, really important in order to like have a right-sized ego and a sense of self and also to know for sure I'm real. I know I'm here because I've bumped up against. I've been held really close and I've crashed in and I know like, oh, I exist and that other person exists as a matter of fact and for real. And there's space for me, but there's space for them too. Like we have to be able to tolerate certain levels of frustration in our environment and in our relationships with others and in our relationship with ourselves, like even our own limitations, right? A kid has to learn how to tie their own shoes eventually. Right. If you do it for them forever, first of all, their fingers don't get strong. And second, they don't learn how to deal with that feeling of like the distance between what I want to be able to do and what I can't yet do. Right. And then you get people who are like, well, then I'm not going to try or do new things. I'm only going to do the things I'm already good at. And this is a personal experience over here of like, well, okay, I don't like the feeling. I don't want to know about the distance between what I can do now and what I want to be able to do. So I'm going to stop wanting to be able to do new things. I'm just going to do these few things.
Interesting.
Right? Because this relationship to myself is like, I'm so frustrated and I don't know how to just live through that feeling of frustration. I haven't accepted it or learned how to tolerate it in order to like go do the thing that I want to do of like, this is frustrating and knowing like, oh, I live through frustration. Whew. So you take away that really important experience, vital. It's essential. It's like one of the few essential things is to learn how to tolerate like, oh, this world is frustrating, to know what to do in the face of discomfort or struggle. Yeah. You have to be able to do that in order to like be this kind of animal on earth successfully. Yeah. But then also what you take away, if you were to, even if you could perfectly meet the expectations of your infant or your toddler, is you take away their opportunity to know their mother in her fullness, to know the whole person who is their mother. Because a whole person actually doesn't have time, isn't actually able to be ever present for all your needs constantly. Like that's not reasonable. Yeah. In order to do that, you would be suppressing so much about who you are. And this child would be actually not allowed to know you Because the truth of you as a person is that you have real limitations, real normal limitations. You also have preferences and needs. And sometimes your needs get put over their preferences because their needs are met. And so their preferences actually go down below you also getting your needs met, right?
That's really good.
And your preferences are actually like the same level of important. That's just kind of stuff they want, and there's kind of stuff you want. And sometimes you get to have just the stuff that you want over just the stuff that they want when everybody's needs are met. And that shows them who you are. It models a whole person for them, which is about them, but it also shows them actually the specific you. They don't just need a mother, they need you.
Yeah.
And the real you does not exist to meet their every tiny expectation and insistence. The real you exists to live her own life, which includes this beautiful part where you get to be with and take care of this little baby, and also all the other stuff that is you.
It's beautiful.
So this good enough version of you is actually much, much better because it's real.
Yeah. And it also helps them understand that your life doesn't stop when you become a parent.
Yes.
Because if your whole existence is like to orbit this child and ensure that they don't have anything missing from their life, then where are you? Like who's the you inside of that role? There's no time to nourish the you that existed before this little one arrived.
Yeah.
And then that also teaches the child that like you have so much life to live until you have a baby and become the one who orbits the child and ensures that they never feel anything that they don't want to feel.
Yeah. Which is amplified if you, baby, are a girl.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
have this extra thing where what you're going to become is not just a parent, but the mom who disappears.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
It's so
really
interesting.
Good. Really good.
I have this one other thought about the perfect.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect mother in the Donald Winnicott model, right?
Okay.
We got this good enough mother versus this perfect mother, and we're saying let's do the enough good version. So the other way we talk about it is just the perfect, right? It's more the like, oh, there's good enough, and then there's perfect. And perfect doesn't exist, right? And it doesn't exist not like you can't attain it, but like we can't even agree on what the fuck that is.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody can. Even people within the same silos of thought about parenting or about what a woman should be or about politics or religion or what, even people who think the same as the same-ish as one another about stuff cannot exactly come to a consensus about what would be perfect. So there's this weird inside and outside pressure on, we're jumping to women now. We're coming out of the archetype and we're talking about women who are moms to be perfect. And nobody will tell you how to be it or what it would even look like for you to get to do that. Nobody ever gets there. And oh God, my brain just splintered so many directions, right? Of like, they want you to be all beautiful, like we were talking about before. They want you to be all nurturing. They want you to be this. That's where we get these like tropes about like this like Madonna whore complex of like, be this, but also be that, but all the way this, but all the way this. No one will even tell you what to do, even if you wanted to try to do it. It's not real. It doesn't exist. It doesn't make any sense. And the only thing we know about the mom who's perfect is that she's not us. I'm not perfect, but neither are you. Well, you're not perfect, but neither am I. That's all that we know for sure about this perfect mother, is that she isn't us.
Yeah.
And so I want to say, from out of the 50s, these beautiful people who studied mothers and children and put the kind of the basis of some of our best psychological understanding, it's not better to be the perfect mother. It's better to be the good enough mother.
Yeah.
And if the perfect mother can't ever be us, then
Right.
That's
for
not,
real.
just is
Yeah.
not.
Like, no, that's right.
Let's get rid of that.
And you'll be happier if you don't set your standard at impossible. Yeah. Because then if the standard is impossible, then every night you'll go to bed thinking of all the ways you blew it, which you actually may still, even if you have your eyes on good enough.
Sure.
But you can catch yourself when you do that. I do it all the time of like, yep, okay, that was not my best work, but here are some things I did well today.
Yeah.
And then you wake up tomorrow and you practice the way Layne talks about, which if you haven't listened to the episode about that,
yeah.
I don't know what it's called. Is it
probably
parenting as
we're
a
all just
practice?
practicing,
Or we're
I
all just
assume.
practicing.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I was thinking about it on my
too.
trip this weekend. But just this idea that like there's not an arrival at this. You just will wake up tomorrow and you'll do more of it and it'll be a beautiful practice. The finish line is not perfection. The finish line is good enough, and good enough even is going to change each day based on all the moving pieces that your life is right now. If you want to be a happy parent, you cannot be an aspiring perfect parent. You cannot be a perfectionist and a genuinely happy person.
Right.
Spoken as a perfectionist who really has to catch myself. And thank goodness I have conversations like these where I'm like, oh yeah, no, the standard isn't real. That voice out there that's like, well, if you just be this and that, sexy but not too sexy, attractive but not too attractive, like really nurturing but not so nurturing, you know, not a helicopter, but like definitely right there, ready to meet their needs. Those voices are loud and confusing and overlapping. Like they contradict each other all the time.
Honestly, they're kind of like the baby's demands.
Yeah.
They're so absurdly immature that they're like, can't you just effing be whatever I needed from you to be in that second? In that second, I wanted you to be all the way nurturing. In that second, I didn't want you to be a helicopter. In that second, I wanted you to be sexy. In that second, I wanted you to be soft so I could nestle it.
Yeah.
Can you just be what I want now? Can you just remove my discomfort?
Yeah.
You, mother, in every moment, can you just know what's making me uncomfortable and take it away?
Yeah.
It's a lot like the baby one.
That's right.
Silly.
It's
not
silly.
reasonable.
It's not reasonable, and it's not your problem.
Yeah.
You didn't do that.
Yeah.
You just be you and do what you can today to be healthy you.
Yes.
Raising these beautiful children you have. And it's good enough. And you're very good at it. You're doing a great job. Yep. And yeah, this is refreshing. This is really beautiful.
Yeah. So that's why we called our podcast Very Good Enough, because we believe that very good enough is very good indeed.
It's enough.
Yeah.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fully.
This was great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm so
just
happy to get to
learned
just
so much.
chit chat with
I
you
know.
again. I love it.
I sometimes find myself when we're doing this, like forgetting that I'm on a podcast. So like even body language, I'm like, I don't know what I look like right now. I'm just like sitting, taking in everything you're saying.
When we get to just face each other and have a conversation, the conversation is rich
nice.
And they get to be here.
Yeah,
and
I
we
hope
love
it's
that.
good for you guys.
But honestly, like,
yeah, right. I'm just hanging out with my friend, listening. Wait, my very smart friend, listening to everything you have to say. Yeah, this is so good. Thank you.
Good.
That's
Thank
really
you.
helpful.
Yeah.
Cool.
So everyone's invited to Very Good Mothers Club,
Everyone,
including me, and I'm not a mom.
It's true. And that's exactly
what we learned
true.
today.
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone's invited. You're literally invited to join us in Very Good Mothers Club.
Yeah.
We host a call together every fourth Tuesday of the month. It's become one of my favorite things to do. Some days there's a bunch of people there and it's super fun. Some days there's two and that's also super fun.
The intimacy of it's really cool.
The level of personalized attention is so fun.
Yeah. And if you're intimidated at the idea of like joining a call with strangers or Zoom doesn't sound that appealing, that's fair. Just do it anyway. We will do what we can to minimize any awkwardness on it. And it's a really cool opportunity to feel normal and to feel seen and to talk with really amazing people about the stuff we all think about and face. So it's really good. You should come. If you are not in Very Good Mothers Club, our online community, but you want to join our call, there's a way you can sign up for the membership, but it's like a free week trial. Did I say that right? Free trial for a week. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Do that, but do it the week that we have our call.
Yes.
Then you can jump in. You can meet us. If you don't want to be a part of the membership, then you just got a free call out of it. And we loved meeting you. Perfect. But if you love it, and I think you will, then you can taste it, sample it, and then know it's great. And then you can join. So that would be awesome. And we would love to know you. And thanks for everything.
If you like this podcast, if you have just arrived or if you have not done this already, if you would mind hopping on to wherever you listen to the podcast and just dropping some stars, dropping a little review. It's like the number one thing you can do to help other people find the podcast. Having little reviews trickle in over time is like one of the things that podcast platforms use to say like, oh, people like this. We should show it to other people like them. So telling people in your life and writing a review or just dropping some stars on Spotify, those are the biggest ways that you can help spread the podcast. So we would love that so much.
Thank you.
We're so thankful that you're here.